Today, I'm going to talk to you about Marcus Rothko. He is the artist I found most interesting from the section given for the assignment. I looked through quite a few other people, yet I found an American immigrant that provides the spirit of an American immigrating into the United States and making a name for himself the most interesting. Nonetheless, he had a very interesting life and he was troubled throughout his entire career. Marcus Rothko originally hails from Dvinsk, Russia. He was born on September 25th, 1903. By 1913, his whole family had immigrated to Portland, Oregon, apprehensive that the family's oldest sons would be drafted into the Russian Imperial Army. 7 months after he arrived, his father died and the children began work to support the family. He was also known as Mark or Marcus. He went to school and delivered groceries and newspaper to aid his family. He was an exceptional student and graduated high school at the age of 17, finishing in 3 years and awarded a scholarship to Yale in 1921. Unfortunately, his scholarship was revoked after the end of his freshman year. Mark became a waiter and a delivery boy to pay the bills, but eventually he ended up dropping out at the end of his sophomore year. He found the school to be racist and felt ostracized by the students of financial privilege. By 1923, Rothko had moved to New York City. While at the Art Students League of New York, his interest in art began. He was onlooking students sketching a young woman. His newfound love for art began to manifest. Rothko had been fond of theater his entire life. This led him to paint many theatrical works of art. Along his journey, he began instructing elementary school art class from 1929 to 1952. By 1930, Rothko had become a part of a posse following abstract painter Milton Avery. His art began to reflect Avery's so that you can see his art began to reflect Avery's. You can see in the painting titled Three Nudes to my left. And then you can see Milton Avery's to the right, and you can see some of the similarities in the brushstrokes and painting styles. At the Portland Art Museum in 1933, Rothko held his first exhibition solely of his own fruition. Interestingly enough, he presented the work of his students along with his own. By this time, his artwork was comprised mainly of aquarels and drawings. 2 years later, at the Contemporary Arts Gallery in New York, he hosted yet another one-man show. Mark had now expanded to oil painting. He began to surpass Avery, his mentor. The artwork was now evolving to a depth of earning him a reputation in the art community. Rothko's work began to take on a different meaning. His artwork seemed to stem from a deep, primitive portion of the mind, and that's what he wished to portray. Rothko began writing the book, The Artist's Reality, Philosophies of Art, although he never finished it. His son, Christopher Rothko, edited and finished the paperback book in 2005. Maria Popova states, product of being constantly haunted by the specter of that agonizing potential for being repeatedly misunderstood. What I think that means is his biggest trouble was no one understood the works of art and the message he was trying to portray. His book served to a final underlying twist. The book was was somewhat of a manuscript on paper and a glimpse into his fractured mind. It seems many great artists such as Elvis Presley and Tupac Shakur seem to gain greater fame even after death. Rothko's twist was that his manuscript was released 35 years after his death. Some of his paintings go from anywhere from $10 to $45 million. So that's quite a big jump from making $135 back in the day when he was selling his paintings and having trouble moving them, even through art dealers. He chose to end his own life overdosing on barbiturates and severing his own wrist or his own arm with a razor blade, leaving the floor drenched in blood, almost like a sad story out of a book. I wonder if he did this out of the pain of separating from his second wife, Mel, or a deeper internal pain of being misunderstood, or maybe as a final expression of ending his life so his art would gain greater meaning by becoming a martyr. Bill and Hillary Clinton's first date was to a Mark Rothko exhibit at the Yale University Art Gallery. #Rothko didn't kill himself. Mythology seemed to play a heavy role in Rothko's life. The painting, Oedipus, stemmed from ancient Greece. The painting was completed in 1944 using oil on canvas with a size of 36 by 24 inches. Rothko was enamored by tragedy. This painting represents just that. Oedipus was said to have murdered his father and been the lover of his mother. He was also said to crack the riddle of the Sphinx. I believe that he was trying to speak to the human condition, how man has crossed sacred boundaries. He probably felt strongly about this because at the time, the world was at the peak of World War. Rothko drew upon mythology and the work of Friedrich Nietzsche's book, The Birth of Tragedy, for inspiration in some of his most iconic work. He even began to stop naming his paintings and used only numbers to immerse the viewer in the totality of his work rather than distracting viewers with the name. So this painting, number 61, was my favorite painting by Rothko that I found. The painting currently resides at the Museum of Contemporary Art in Los Angeles, California, in the Panza collection. The medium used was oil on canvas, and it's a massive 115 by 233 inches. The Panza collection work can almost be described as staring into a fire. If you stare at the painting more and more, you begin to see underlying shapes, and you can project your own images. This makes for a unique viewing experience for each person. I looked back at it and I stared for a little while and began to imagine different items in the painting, almost as if I were daydreaming. It's kind of hard to see through the camera here, and it's really hard to get a good print online because they're copyrighted. But if you look into the painting, you can see different shadows and figures in the room that can look like different things to different people. So every time I looked at this painting, something else popped out to me. That's why I liked it the most. Also, Rothko was known for painting extremely large works of art. A piece that would command your attention, not a shrunken down painting looking through a microscope. Mark Rothko became well known in the art community in his later years. He was contracted to complete the Phillips Collection in Washington, D.C., and he even attended John F. Kennedy's inaugural ball, and he ended up actually sitting next to him during that ball. Rothco was responsible for 5 paintings hung in Harvard from 1963 to 1979. The school has since displayed the artwork several times in the recent years. Part of the reason they are not on display right now is because some of the colors were fading, but they ended up adding a lighting system to compensate for the colors dulling. Rothco was also responsible for the Rothco Chapel, a building in Houston culminating 6 years of work of his life, which he obsessed over. The project was supported by John and Dominique de Menil. The chapel, located in Houston, is one of controversy. In his older age, he himself was not able to paint much of the artwork. Due to his heart condition, 2 of his colleagues did over half of the painting. He was so specific to the design of the architecture and the postmodern structure which would display his work that the original architect quit. Unfortunately, Rothco was not alive to see the opening of his chapel. Just like his book, he was unable to finish his biggest statement in art. I believe Rothco was troubled, and I wonder if he went mad painting his chapel. The chapel was dark and tied to his newly found religious artwork. I believe by doing this, just like in his large paintings, he wanted to envelop viewers in his art, such as the main room in the chapel. I wonder if he was so fearful to how people would react to the culmination of his artwork that he chose to take his own life, or if he chose to make a statement doing so. I hope you liked my piece on Marcus Rothko. Thank you very much.